Hello everyone, this is Menz here. I'm going to be doing a armor breakdown of the Tiger P here. Feel free to check the link in the video description below, and also at the end of the video it brings you to the main article for the Tiger P's weak spot over on my website wakuru.com. Anyway, the Tiger P, more or less, it's kind of infamous for not having excellent armor for a heavy tank, which it's kind of true. Really, its faults come with the cheeks here, lower glacis, and even a slightly weak turret. But it does have some strong bits of armor on the front. The side and rear aren't the best, but at least the frontal armor, for the most part, it's pretty strong, but only against, lower penetrating tier 8s and tier 7, 6, 5 tanks. But against, higher tiers and even some, say, like tier 7 tank destroyers, it can struggle a bit if they know your weak spots. But starting out on the upper hull plate here, 202 millimeters effective, excuse me there. And then moving down, the upper glacis and the middle glacis, as kind of pointed out over here, they're still pretty damn strong for a tier 7 tank. And this is really the strength of the Tiger P's armor from the front. Unfortunately, the lower glacis kind of screws it up. It's only 113 millimeters effective. And then moving on to the front cheeks, that kind of angle to the sides, they're only 80 millimeters thick. So again, they're 113 millimeters effective. And beneath them is a very small little 25 millimeter angled bit that, as the Tiger P angles, it's actually more visible and easier to hit. But that's only 52 millimeters effective. It's not easy to hit, but nonetheless, it is there. It's easier to hit with a slight angle to the tank. Moving further up, though, the turret ring, not really that strong. Honestly, the center, 100-ish millimeters effective. And once you get to the side bits of it, it drops down to 80 millimeters thick, and it's actually weaker on the sides, which is kind of strange. Looking at it from the front, most tanks do not have that. And then once you start getting to the turret front, it looks intimidating because it has a very large mantlet. However, it's still fairly weak. The only strong bits are right around the gun, and then high and low, and then also towards the side edges of the turret front. But these yellow bits in the center, they're not exactly the strongest. They're not very strong even against, say, like some tier 6 tanks. Some tier 5s can even penetrate it. If you basically hit the bits of armor that they're not very thick, and towards the center here, basically where my mouse is kind of moving back and forth here, there's no armor behind this area, like a second layer. Some bits are strong, but the yellow areas are not. And then once you get out of that, it's pretty easy to be able to penetrate these outer areas too that are highlighted in yellow. And then even the sides of the turret here aren't exactly, they're not exactly the strongest either. They're not very thick. The way that they're angled, they're not exactly very strong either. They're not the easiest to penetrate for tanks lower tier. You have a chance to bounce off of them. But for some tanks, you can actually punch through them, depending on where exactly the turret is facing you, because they're not very thick. And then moving up finally to the cupola, usually cupola's the top area is actually stronger than the lower part, but in the Tiger P's case, it's actually kind of the opposite. Looking at it here, the top center is only 53 millimeters effective, whereas the bottom's 129 millimeters, and then even the edges up here, 89 millimeters, but then the bottom, since its angle, goes up to 218. So the cupola is pretty large, easy to hit, and mainly what kind of ruins the Tiger P's armor from the front is weak cupola. You can penetrate the turret front if you know where kind of the aim. There's a cheek weak spot here, and then lower glacis weak spot. So every kind of level on the Tiger P, if you look at it vertically, has somewhere that even low tier tanks can penetrate it. But if you move a little bit over, if someone doesn't know your weak spot, you're going to hit some strong armor. But for most people, the weak spots, cupola, center of the mantlet, And then you have kind of the angled cheeks here on this front and lower glacis. They're all kind of well-known spots to fire at some tanks, so it is definitely not in the Tiger P's favor. But depending on who you're facing, it can be pretty strong. Now, moving over to the side view here. Let me just line this up real quick. The armor pretty much goes from like riddled with weak spots to being pretty bad. The side is almost all under 99 millimeters effective, with only bits of the cupola, the turret ring, and a couple angled sections being above that. And then finally going to the rear, it's actually a little bit stronger than the side armor. Looking at it here, you know, the rear hull and the rear turret is pretty easy to penetrate. You know, they sit anywhere like 80 millimeters and then up to 83 millimeters. Not very strong. There are a couple, angled sections on the back hull which are a little bit stronger, but for most tanks, they're going to be able to penetrate them. Just avoid hitting the angled parts of the turret and also parts of the cupola as far as the red areas, and pretty much just hit the flat spots on the rear of the hull and the turret. But really, the Tiger P's armor, it kind of is outdated in a way, because even with people not shooting, say, premium rounds, it's very easy to basically just kind of shoot it at its weakest spots, and it doesn't really have any strength if you know how to tackle it. For those that don't know how to tackle it, that's really the only saving grace, because some people will try to punch through the thickest armor here, thinking, oh, it's flat, I can go right through it, and then they don't really try the cheeks because they might think it's the same thickness. And more or less, the Tiger P definitely, I think, is in a need of a slight little buff more than they've given it in the past, say, like 2+ years. It hasn't really even been changed much at all. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said, there's a full breakdown of the armor over on my website, wattguru.com, along with a ton of other tanks here. I'm trying to catch up on doing videos for them, but there's a link in the video description. Also, there should be one popping up here if it hasn't already. So thanks again for watching. See you around. Have a very nice day. Hopefully I'll see you sometime soon again.